But the law of three, the source of creation, says all life, all good, all power. Infinite power, infinite wisdom, infinite love. Like the three is really pointed out here a lot. And to transmute evil, assist good, use discrimination.
This is one of my favorite parts also. I think he says, does he say a god? I think he says a god must manifest infinite power, infinite wisdom, and infinite love. And I love that so much. And then it also like really makes you think about how we see gods. And like if we actually have a distorted view of a god when it's something different than source, because the source has to manifest infinite power, infinite wisdom, and infinite love.
Yeah. And so, like, is everything else a demigod, a false god? Like, that's where you have to really use discernment, right?
Yeah.
And it has to have divine love possessed of perfect knowledge, divine wisdom knowing all possibly means, divine power possessed by joint will of divine love and wisdom.
I love
Joint,
that so much.
I'm like joint will of divine love and wisdom. That's neutrality right there.
I know, like I just think of unconditional love.
We talked about the flower of life. Wait, okay, so the circle in the middle. And then there are three circles around that, right? Like start interjoining. And it says there are three circles or states of existence. There's the circle of light. It has dwells nothing but God, and only God can transverse it. There's a circle of chaos, where all things from nature arise from death, and the circle of awareness, where all things spring from life.
It's interesting to me the circle of chaos is actually one of the circles. So do you think the circle of chaos is like just your darkness that you choose in general?
I think circle of chaos is everything that's not God.
But it's all God. Speaking of the Kabbalion, it is all God.
Well, okay, so it's all God, but then you have the illusion, and I think the chaos is the illusion.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. And then I love how so they talk about man, liberty, and light. That definitely makes you think of the Constitution.
Yeah. What does it
And
say that it's the paths of the soul is man, liberty, and light?
yeah, the three paths of the soul is man, liberty, and light. And they compare man to chaos. So you're right. Man is the illusion, like our physical bodies is the illusion. The circle of awareness is liberty, and then the circle of light is the light.
So the awareness is where all things spring from life. Like that's consciousness. We talk about conscious creating. It's like that's where you have the liberty and the freedom. You're no longer entrapped, you're no longer enslaved. Once you become consciously aware, you can create the reality in which you want to experience.
So for some reason, the phrase just came into my mind of like life, liberty, and property. Do you think that they took man as property?
Don't get me started about the birth certificate system and how to become a sovereign citizen. Whoo! You are look it up, people. Go down the rabbit hole if you want to look up something interested. But you are owned. Your soul is owned by an incorporation of whatever government system you are a part of. So go free yourself if you choose, or learn how to spiritually just live a sovereign life.
Yeah, that is so interesting that here it says light, liberty, and man. And in our own declaration, it says life, liberty, and property. Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh, and then they go on to say, like, man will have three hindrances. And those three hindrances is your lack to obtain knowledge, or your non-attachment to God, or if you have an attachment to evil. So when I think of these, it's like these are the three things that will turn us away from our own light. So if we just are apathetic to obtain knowledge, if we're just like, oh, we know enough, and then we haven't found that divine connection to believe in something greater than ourselves, or if there's something that could be considered evil that we have an attachment to, that maybe we haven't even been aware that we're attached to, those are pulling us away from our own light.
Yeah, and I think the word evil, at least in our language, the opposite of it is live. So I think in order, evil is such a harsh, I just, a judgment and all these things that's thrown out there so much by humanity. But I just think it's the opposite of what is keeping us from living. So if there's something that is in your that you haven't attached to, that's not allowing you to live your sovereign life and not allowing you to live the life you want to live, I think that's what you can say you're attached to, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. So, okay, this part of the tablets gets so good because they start talking about the gates and how we're separated in this realm from primeval chaos. And so Thoth actually is taken to the Lords of Arulu, and they open the doors. They show him what is behind these gates and why there's this need for these barriers between us. And what he sees, he's actually like taken back by. Like it says that he is renounced in his place. Like he's like, holy shit, close the gate. Like I can't believe that's what exists down there. And it's actually really interesting because whenever I channel this, like I've been to a lot of these gates, and I've been told that there's a lot of Anunnaki that guard these gates, and then there's Nagas, there's like serpents that guard these gates. But these gates are so important because there's gates that we can go into that give us access to the higher realms, and a lot of star seeds that are here, a lot of people that are interested in this knowledge, they're from the higher realms, and that's why they feel such a connection to this information. But then there's also barriers of primeval chaos, of like dark spirits, dark souls, like pure chaos, where like if they didn't have these gates, they would just destroy this experience and this reality that we're in.
Do you think that's why it's spiritual protection? Like when you fortify your light body and just the energy center around you, that it's just to also not like to create a fortified barrier between the chaos of this realm that we're on?
I think of like the as above, so below, right? So it's almost like Earth protecting her own energy. That's how it was kind of just shown to me. It's like these barriers are like for all of our protection.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think the beautiful part is, like you said, he renounced his place at Arulu, but I think he more or less renounced his place at Arulu so that he could come and help man. And he saw all that chaos and he's like, "Oh, got some work to do. These people need my help." And so he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go finish my work on Earth. I'm going to train the trainer, go train these other guys that they can go spread the word and create their own, places on the four corners of the world. And then I'll come back to Arulu." So I think that for anyone that's a star seed here, light worker, light warrior, that you came here for a mission. I think this is like some of the same thing that you also did as well, that you were in a very beautiful place before this. Hopefully you were in a very beautiful place, or where you had an ability to come here or to go on to a different mission and you chose to come to Earth. I think that's beautiful. And I think it's something we should honor and acknowledge for, not only Thoth, but for all of you as well.
And so he really talks about how there's different symbols around waiting for you that have been hidden that only the seeker can find. And he even says like he has to make the way for the seeker hard to tread. And that's because this information isn't for the weak and wavering. And so those people will be rejected. And so if you want your access to the higher realms, you have to almost like prove yourself that you can hold this frequency long enough and that you deserve to be there. And this is why Thoth says all the time, like, don't wake me if you're not ready. Like, if you wake him, but this is your path, but like you do still have like some work to do, they'll be there for you and they'll guide you and be like, look, these are your steps. This is where you're at. That's what they did with me when I was trying to get my access. So it's not anything to fear, but at the same time, like there's a reason why this isn't easy. And it's because this is information that only beings of the highest light can access.
Well, they've seen what's happened when people have summoned the gates to open from the dark, and Atlantis crashed. Atlantis fell. So it's just like, everything is neutral energy, just powered by either the positive or negative polarity. And so they're saying like this is only to be accessed from the highest positive polarity and from your light.
Yeah,
And
and it reminds me, sorry, I just got a picture of like Thor. So in all of the Thor movies, they are always trying to like they're trying to open some kind of gate to let that Thanos out, to let the darker beings out. And I feel like all of those movies are actually so much more real than we realize.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, I think it's pretty phenomenal that people who channel this information and put them into script. It's so beautiful because it's like, do they know they're channeling? Did they have a past life regression and they just put it all out on a movie? Like, do they know? Do they know this information that they're channeling is actually true?
I know. I wonder that too, like all of these script writers and stuff, because I'm sure they channel it. And so I'm like, do they even realize that they're channeling and what they are channeling?
Yeah, I mean, I have just started exploring the wars on Lyra and Vega and everything that went up there, and I can easily see it being turned into a movie or a book series because it's such like it's hard information because you know that it really happened and you feel for the beings that experience this, but it's also just like people need to know because there's so much trauma that the light workers that were on those systems brought here of just, I mean, it was not beautiful conditions that they were in at all. It was war. And they brought a lot of it when they incarnated here. And they're like, why are we having such a hard time? And it's like, well, if you can go back and clear that lifetime and understand that war that you experienced or whatever trauma you went through, then it might not feel as heavy here on Earth.
I'm actually surprised that they haven't made like just a book series or something.
I mean, I'm actually really excited for where we're going for this because I feel like this information being released can help so many, or just trigger that they were from there so they can maybe get a past life regression of their own, or just however they clear that trauma. I'm not partial to. I'm just like, all I know is that that's got to be a lot of heaviness that you're carrying with you.
I did a session this morning. Again, it's just another crazy synchronicity. I did a session this morning where I healed a Lyran lifetime during a
Yeah.
Lyran war.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. Like they were bred for war. That's all they were just they knew the lights in the sky were coming back and they knew they had to be prepared.
Yeah. And it was so traumatic because that was one of the first wars like that in our universe. So like these souls hadn't even experienced war before.
Yeah, and so no, they come here and they hear that the reptilians and draconians are here, and it's no wonder they're triggered and angry.
Yeah. And that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, I know, I know.
This
You're
is
welcome.
this is the life of a BQH practitioner.
Neutrality. You have to get really good about just being very observational and just doing your best to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. So Billy Carson goes on to say how NASA discovered the portals that exist naturally around the Earth. And if you look at the ley lines, if you look at where they cross, you can see all of those as energetic portals, like wherever an X is created. And you actually see the pyramids don't line up so much with them anymore, but the pyramids used to line up like perfectly with these ley lines, so that they would really ground and work with like the Earth's magnetic field for this frequency. And then it comes back to like, so is Earth a portal, or does Earth just have multiple small portals?
Or all of the above. But it's very interesting how it says that it's the solar winds really are what activate those portals, those X lines, the X points. Because it's like, oh, okay, so the sun's working with these natural portals, and like even you said, and I think one of the channelings that we just did this last week for Patreon about how Earth is a motherboard, like a hard drive of the computer system, I guess, if you will. And it's just like it all makes sense. How it's just like they reversed engineered all these systems to make computers.
Yeah, absolutely. All of our technology is just based on something that naturally already exists.
It's based on nature.